Awesome. So welcome everyone. It is awesome to have so many moms here tonight. You are welcome to turn on your videos if you want, if you're in bed or if you're still in your pajamas, it doesn't matter, but also you don't have to put it on. We're very excited to have you at our very first live public event. Just before we start, I just quickly want to tell everyone what this is all about and what motherhood is about and why we are here. So motherhood is, I always say motherhood is an app, but it's not. Motherhood is a movement. Motherhood is a thing that we started where we felt that moms need a space where they can breathe. They need a space where they can connect with other moms that are in the same specific phases that they are in. So on the Motherhood app or website, we have mom groups for pregnant moms, newborn moms, baby moms, toddler moms. And in those chat groups, you talk to people that's in the same phase you are, you get resources. But then on the other hand, we also feel like moms always have questions. And we only get to have our questions answered by appointment. So, and for the rest of it, you have to kind of figure it out, right? And there's always new questions. So what we did is we collaborated with amazing experts from all over South Africa, and they are part of the Motherhood, and they are in the mom groups, and they are on the app. But what they do is weekly, we have live events where, like this, panel discussions, workshops on everything mom, and where you can dial in and you can ask your questions and get some answers and grow, but most importantly, relate with real women and real moms with real issues, but also with real answers, and breathe. Okay, so everyone, breathe. Okay, so but tonight's panel is very, very special because we are going to talk about a thing that's, I think, a lot of moms struggle with. We're going to talk about finding that balance in being a mom, also working, and putting in boundaries and keeping to those boundaries. And whether you are a stay-at-home mom, not working, whether you are a mom working from home, whether you are a mom working from an office, it doesn't matter. The discussion tonight is about putting in boundaries, finding things and gems and ways that can bring peace to your heart. And before I introduce our panel, I have this beautiful poem I quickly just want to read to set the tone. It's called Both. I carry my child and my calling, one on my hip, the other in heart. Some days I cradle a meeting while bedtime stories fall apart. They ask how I balance the two. I don't. Not always. Not well. Sometimes I drop the ball in boardrooms. Sometimes in the backyard I dwell. But I still rise, I log in, I clock out. And later I hum lullabies in the dark. Because love doesn't shrink in the doing. It stretches like a flame to a spark. There's power in wanting more than one thing, in dreams that live outside the home too. And guilt has no place in this journey, for each path is honest and true. So I hold space for quiet moments and for loud, purpose-driven days, not in competition, but in harmony. I'm learning to walk both ways. Okay, so with that, I'm going to ask our panelists to each introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about who they are and where they are currently in their motherhood journey, finding this balance between work and life. And so let's start with Saffa Mamma. Welcome. Please
Hello.
tell everyone who you are and why you are here today.
Hi, everyone. So my real name is, and this is going to be a drum roll for some people because my real name is not known on social media. So I'm going to share it now. So my real name is, or my birth name, my given name on my ID document is Carla. And I'm a mom of two boys, a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I'm also, and this is also going to, well, people are also going to go, what? Because people also don't know what I do for a living. This has also been a state secret. But I'm a lawyer, currently working as a legal advisor for a very well-known company in South Africa. You might have probably shopped there today. Yeah, and worked in Dubai for 8 years for a big American law firm, and that is where I got kind of my sea legs in balancing the work-life balance when my 5-year-old came around during COVID back in 2020.
Nice.
I'm on mute. Awesome. Thank you. Next, we also have Jolandi. You can go next.
Yes, so I'm Jolandi Becker. I am the owner of Good Night. I'm also a sleep consultant myself. I also have my own blog and radio show. I feel like I'm a little bit of a jack of all trades. I also write articles for magazines with regards to sleep. So yes, I do all sorts of lots of things. I have 2 children. Mine is already 11 and 13, so I'm in the midway of the getting them out of school phase. It's very nice, but yeah, more on that just now, I guess.
Awesome. Thanks. Welcome, Jolandi, and thank you for being here. And then last but not least, we have Mandi. Mandi, you can also introduce yourself.
Thank you, Marley. So Carla, same. I have a 5-year-old, but a daughter, and a 1.5-year-old little boy. So I think we're in the same age gaps and challenges daily.
Oh, you're going to be together on the Motherhood app.
Yes, we are in the same mama groups. So yeah, 2 toddlers creating chaos and lots of fun and entertainment in the house at this stage. My husband and I both work from home. So it is such a blessing to be able to spend so much time as a family and with our kids, but it does come with a lot of challenge and a lot of demands in terms of this balancing act, I think, Marley, that you spoke of. So I am a qualified industrial psychologist, so I do a lot of consulting and psychometric assessments, leadership development, helping people find their place in the world of work, where they find meaning and purpose and where they can add value. While also doing my first job and passion, which is my actual calling, and I think a lot of moms feel like that, which is mothering, parenting. So I'm very passionate about my job, but I feel like it has become the second tier responsibility after having kids.
Awesome. Thank you, Mandi. Welcome, and welcome to all 3 of you, and thank you for your willingness to tackle this topic with us. My name is Marley Moska. And I am going to moderate the panel discussion tonight. I am the founder of the Motherhood, I don't want to call it the app, the Motherhood movement, you know. And I have 3 kids. Marcus, he is 6, Jalinke is 4, and my baby, Christian, whose child is that? Estian. My baby Estian is 16 months. And so, yeah, also in the thick of it, he is at this moment very busy, like just unpacking any drawer. My house is in a constant mess, like constant. Yeah. So but to enter into our first question, something that I've been struggling with since I became a mom, like you said, Mandi, it's almost like that second tier thing, you know, of becoming a mom becomes more important to you, or becomes your new job or your new passion. But in every phase of every child, just after maternity leave, I started feeling, okay, this is awesome, but I'm kind of, you know, I'm itching to get back into something. It doesn't even have to be what I used to do. It's just, I need to work. And I remember feeling so much guilt for wanting something else or wanting something more that's not just mothering. And I really had to kind of work through it to say, but it's okay to want both. It's okay to have passions and to long for who you were before children. So with that said, maybe we can start with you again, Carla. Have you ever felt like you're failing in both worlds because you're trying to be in both worlds at once? And what helped you shift that mindset of that it's okay to want to work and finding that balance?
So for me, I think when I started realizing, listen, I can't be 100% a mom. I can't be 100% an employee, and I can't be 100% a wife. Like, I felt I was failing on all 3 fronts because nowhere I could give 100%. I wasn't being a good wife. I wasn't being a good employee, and I wasn't being a good mom. Or that was kind of the feelings that I had postpartum. And I had to see a psychologist because I felt like I was completely failing at absolutely everything. And she kind of reassured me. She's like, listen, those three things are three things that you can completely envelop yourself in at any given point in time. So the fact that you're doing all of those three things together, if you can give your job 80%, if you can give your husband 80%, and if you can give your kids 90%, you're not failing, you're doing perfectly fine. And that was kind of a shift for me because, like you said, my whole life was my career. My whole identity was my career. I was used to working 16, 17-hour work days, and I became my job. I didn't know who I was outside of being a lawyer. That was all I was. When I introduced myself to people, it's like, oh, hi, I'm a lawyer. They're like, oh, but what's your name? It was rough, and I had to decondition myself when Gideon came along, and it was freeing to kind of go that I can shed that part of me for a little bit, and I'm allowed to be both, and I can be both at the same time. But it took a lot of long conversations with the psychiatrist to kind of get to that point. But it was a lot of dialogue and putting things out there, not keeping it internal, but voicing it out loud and hearing myself say everything that I was feeling. So that was really helpful.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. Jolandi, do you want to share something on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I'm always feeling like I'm failing. Still, to this day, my kids are already 11. I always feel like somewhere there's a ball being dropped, somewhere things are not 100% working the way that it should. I don't even like using percentages because if I'm going to be saying percentages, I mean, I think I was 5% mom today and 100% working today. I don't know. That's for me. The thing is that for me, it was really a mind shift in the way that I feel like that all the time, but I feel that is what motherhood is. We're leveling up as humans when you become a mother, in all honesty. I really feel that. So I feel like today I won with work, with parenthood, but at the same time, like I just said, I also feel like I failed. And for me, that is like exactly what motherhood is. It is constantly feeling happy and sad. It's constantly feeling this is the worst thing I ever thought I could do and the best thing that I love doing all the time. And for me, the mind shift was leaning into it and realizing, oh, you know what? I leveled up as a human. I can feel 15 things at the same time. And that is what multitasking is feeling 15 different emotions and leaning just into it and not trying to logically be like, how the hell can I be so angry and so sad at the same time? It's absolutely, that's what it is because we've leveled up.
Yeah. You know,
And that's for me.
about that is it's the realness. I think when you try to put up a facade for the world that everything's fine and everything's good, then you're trying to live up to that facade that you put up, you know, this image. And as soon as you, like you said, lean into it and like, hi guys, for the next 3 years, I am going to be late. Always. You know, I'm never going to wear white.
I'm still never late. I'm almost never late. I have to say, I've leveled up in many ways.
Don't brag. Everyone's good in different things, okay? No, I'm just teasing. No, well done. But what I'm saying is just like being real in terms of this is who I am right now. You know, I'm probably going to pitch up with a stain that I just got in the car, although I promise I was neat before I left the house. Or, you know, it's just leaning into it, saying, I'm mom right now. This is my face. And yeah, this is it. And feeling both emotions, feeling the feels. I love that. Mandi, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's extremely common for women and moms, especially with work and with house and home responsibilities, to feel like we're failing at everything at the same time. And at the same time, we're actually doing quite well if you consider everything that we do need to balance and keep in mind. And I loved your poem earlier where you said sometimes I catch balls in the backyard and or drop balls in the backyard, and sometimes I drop balls in the boardroom, because that's literally happened so many times. And I think where a big lesson that I've learned is that it's okay to fail sometimes, and it's okay some days to have dedicated work days and other days where you dedicate your time more to the kids, and to try and balance it as best you can, and just be in the mess as present and as engaged as you can. And it's okay to fail sometimes. I think it's very normal. I think we do more than we give ourselves credit for a lot of the time.
And it's amazing how, I mean, here we are, four moms, and we all feel we fail frequently, but yet we think we're the only ones failing. You know, you kind of get that idea of, yes, look at all those moms, they got it together. The kids took the school project in on time. You know, it's wear a funny hat day, and they all have hats at school, except my child. But what we don't see is on the other day where it was everyone wear red, another mom forgot the red. And, you know, so we're not alone. It's such a common thing to feel this way. Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
I do have to also say on that note is that for me, I always say that we feel very isolated. And I always say that you just have to talk to enough people in one day. And that's what makes, obviously, the motherhood tribe a great thing, is to give yourself perspective. Because you might think that you're failing and drowning and your life is like this, but you just speak to enough people and then you find out, oh, this person is coping with a lot worse than I am.
Yeah. And
I heard a beautiful... No, I heard a beautiful thing, and that's the kind of stuck with me, is that we constantly have lots of different balls in the air. And I think the one thing that we just must realize as moms is that not all of those balls are glass. Some are plastic, and the plastic ones can fall. That's fine. As long as we just aim to catch the glass ones in that moment that it's about to fall, we're good. The plastic ones can go. So that kind of sticks with me when I'm having a hectic day at work, but then also my husband's needing attention and the kids are all on a different wavelength. And then I just go, okay, which is the glass ball? And then I attend to the glass ball.
Awesome. So let's talk a bit about boundaries. I mean, what does it even mean in real life? And do you think mothers feel more pressure to be always on at home and at work? And where do you guys think this pressure comes from? Mandi, you can go first on this one.
I think it's a very common thing for women to feel like they need to overperform at work just to be taken seriously as professionals sometimes. Yep. There is an immense amount of pressure on women in the workplace, even when they aren't moms, to perform and to show up and to be able to compete in a man's world. And unfortunately, that has been the reality. But now added pressure comes when you're a mom, and that becomes your main responsibility and the expectation from the world. But at the same time, you have to balance all the glass balls at the same time, Carla. So where do boundaries come in, Marley? For me, I think right now the scarcest commodity is focus time. I can juggle a lot of things throughout the day, but I hardly ever get time to just focus because I am a work from home, full-time homeschooling mom with 2 toddlers in the house. So I don't have a lot of time for focus. And I feel like burnout comes in when I try to do everything at the same time, and I try to do the best I can with everything I am busy with. And if I don't protect the boundaries to say I'm offline at this time, or mornings are for me and the kids up until 9 o'clock, and then I put in a 2-hour focus shift. If I don't protect those boundaries, then things get blurred and messy. So I try to do that as best as I can. On most days, I still feel like I don't do it exceptionally well. But I think that every person, every woman, every mom must have dedicated, non-negotiable boundaries that they put in place. And even if you are employed and you have to go to work, I think boundaries are not a lack of commitment. It's actually a form of self-respect or professional respect that we have to show each other, and that we need to communicate to our employers and to the people that we work with. Another comment that I wanted to share earlier, someone said something and I thought we have to stop apologizing for being moms in the workspace. I think I've heard it from a lot of people that I work. I'm sorry I'm late. I had to drop the kids. Or I'm sorry I don't look nice because it's such a normal thing to be tired, to be exhausted, to have stains, to be 5 minutes late. I'm doing my best. Yeah.
So that anyone want to add about the boundaries or where the pressure comes from?
I think pressure also, I think more often than not, unfortunately, we put the pressure on ourselves. We often think it comes from somewhere else, but it often is us being super hard on ourselves and thinking we need to be the best moms, the best workers, the best everything. And it's very often not a pressure from someone else. It's just from us inside. And the crappy part is that we also compare ourselves the whole time with people around us. And then, unfortunately, hard to say this, but the most judgmental group of people you'll ever find is a bunch of moms. So, and it becomes like, because we are like, if this one is not doing what I'm doing, and if this one is not doing the way, then we become very defensive, thinking like, oh, if they're not doing it the way I'm doing it, they're wrong and I'm right. And it's like, just because you're doing something in a different way doesn't mean it's the wrong way. It's just a different way.
Yeah.
But I think often the pressure comes from ourselves, that we have this expectation on ourselves, and it's unnecessary. You don't want to be the perfect parent. You really don't. You don't want to be the perfect, because you're putting, like, imagine your child has to live up to that.
Yeah.
The perfect parent, that's not something you want to give your child.
No, they don't need us perfect. They need us present. And with present, I don't mean you're not allowed to go to work. But when you are with them, they need you to be with them. Carla, you wanted to add something?
I think, yeah, with boundaries, I think the more you put them in place, the easier it gets to put them in place, but it takes practice. I remember being 5 months pregnant with Gideon, working on an arbitration in Dubai, and I started work that morning at like 7 a.m., which was quite normal, and it was 11 p.m. already, and I told the partner, I need to go sleep. I need to go home and I need to go rest. And the words I got back was, no, but it's arbitration week. We go home when the work is done. I'm like, I am 5 months pregnant. I need to go sleep. And these people had no chill. And I got in an Uber because I wasn't awake enough to drive myself home. I had no comfort that I would get me home that night. So I got in an Uber, and I remember thinking, the first feeling I felt was guilt about leaving the team and actually getting some rest for myself and my 5-month-old that was in my belly at the time, my 5-week-old unborn child. And ever since then, I made a promise that night, I'm going to set firm boundaries. I'm going to start feeling less guilty about them. And it took a couple of boundaries only before I actually started to feel fine about setting boundaries in place, and that it was actually good for everyone's sake.
And Carla, when we do that, you actually perform better, because you're protecting your energy, you're conserving your sustainable efforts. Otherwise, you're just pushing until you burn out eventually if you don't do that.
It takes practice.
I find it so interesting that it's so difficult. I'm very good at saying no. So much so that I can tell you that my friends, if I say no, they know there's a legitimate question or a reason for it. And to be honest, sometimes the reason is, I don't want to. And that's also a legitimate reason for anything. I am a 40-year-old woman. I can do what I want to do. I do enough of things that I don't want to do. But saying no, and that's for me the interesting part, is lots of people have very difficulty saying no to things, especially when it comes to nice things where friends invite us and things like that. And a braai, and I don't know, or just going home when you're going out or anything. And people are very, but like I said, I feel it's a learned skill. You get better and better and better getting those boundaries in place. But the reality is that you have to remember is, if you say no or yes to something, you are saying, even if you don't say the words, you're saying no to something else. And that's the reality is that, and if you want to create boundaries, for me, the first thing is that you have to consciously think of what your priorities are. If it's work, if you're in a season where it's lots of work and it's got a high priority, great for you. put it on there. If it's your kids, they're the high priority because they're small or whatever. At the moment, they need your attention. That's your priority. So, and your friends maybe in your social life is less of a priority or something like that. Or maybe you're in a season where work is less of a priority. When someone is asking you, hey, work 12 o'clock in the evening, you have to think in your head, where on the list of priorities is this? Is this something to say yes for? Because if I'm saying yes for this, I'm saying no to my other priorities. And you have to, so technically when you say yes, you're always saying no to something else. So you're all good at saying no.
Well, that thing could be abstract. It could be, I'm saying no to rest. I'm saying no to focus, or you know, necessarily saying no to an event. The other day we had also a session, and I think it was Suzanne. She's a counselor, and she said that when you put up your boundary, you have to keep your boundary in place. It's not the responsibility of other people to hold your boundary up. Let's say you put up a fence to keep a lion out, and your fence is not strong enough. You can't say, lion, please don't climb over my fence and kill me, you know. It's not going to work. Yeah. You have to make sure when you put that fence or boundary up, it's strong, it's steady, you're comfortable with it, you feel safe on that side, and it's your responsibility to keep and hold the boundary. Because I also think sometimes people put up boundaries, or we put up boundaries, and we struggle to hold our then we can't understand why we're struggling, why we feel overwhelmed. And then I want to say something else, and now I can't remember. Mom brain, let's move.
Clearly wasn't a priority.
Priority. Oh, I saw a shirt. I think her name is Katinka. She's also an influencer. And it was long ago. She sold these shirts that said, "Ek's jammer ek's laat, ek wou nie kom nie. I'm sorry I'm late. I didn't want to come." And yeah, the amount of times that I thought, like, I would love to wear that shirt, but to just say, "Sorry I'm late, I didn't want to come." So, yeah.
I also saw a meme a video the other day, also someone where they were also saying, like, when you say I have to ask my husband, it's just a different way of, I'm not gonna say yes.
Okay, so Mandi, I was thinking about specifically you as an industrial psychologist and work, and giving you can have your boundary, right? But like you said in the beginning, as women in the workplace, because we feel like we have to work extra hard to keep positions or to get into senior roles or whatever, we often feel scared to give a boundary to your boss, to say, listen, I hear you, but my kids I need to bathe them or pick them up, or my daughter has a matric dance or whatever. Like, are there clever ways to approach this? Do you speak to HR? Do you speak? Do you write a letter? Like, just some tips maybe from the work side of how do we talk to our, work colleagues about our boundaries?
I think it's something that we need to practice. For some people, it is easier. For others, it's a little bit harder, perhaps, because we feel like we still need to perform at the same level which we did before we had kids. And I have to admit and publicly say that is nearly impossible to do. You can't perform at the same level which you did, and it's unethical for that to be expected of any mom coming back into the workplace. From a more formal legal side, our South African legal framework is supportive of family time and parental support. But in reality, the expectation is still there because the role is continuing, the job requirements are continuing. So practical tips, which I think are maybe one or two clever ways to do it, is, I thought about it earlier, Carla, when you spoke, is for us to communicate early and clearly when we are available or when we can do focused work, and to also negotiate flexibility as a benefit for your employer or for your workers, to say, you know what, I am more productive during 10 and 2 in the mornings. Can we please schedule our meetings in those blocked out times, and in the afternoons I'm a little bit preoccupied with kids or a little bit distracted, but I'll catch up on my mails at night. So to be firm about when you are more focused, and to trade flexibility as a benefit to the the workplace. And then, like I said, to just be clear, especially when you are moving back into the workplace after giving birth to your newborn, to say, can we negotiate when I am available or how I resettle back into work? And then even just, Marley, clever ways to say things like, I'm offline after 5 p.m., but send me an email, send me a message. I'll prioritize it first thing in the morning. Because that still sounds like you're willing to help, you're being collaborative, but it also sets the boundary to say, I'm offline at 5 p.m. And then, like you said, you need to protect that fence. Don't then pick up your phone and read your emails while you're putting your child to sleep. It's like an emotional load, parenting, but then there's also this intellectual stimulation and overload, and double burnout is actually a thing. So make sure that when you're busy putting your kids to sleep, you're present. And when you're at work, you're present. But when we try to do both and we blur the lines, this overload just builds over time. We don't need to be always on. So those are some of the practical things. I don't know what it's worth. Those are things that have helped me and which I've heard from other moms that I've worked with.
Thanks, Mandi. Carla, I don't know how, you momming and you are social mediaing and you are lawyering. How do you how do you manage it when, I mean, it can easily become blurred lines between work and motherhood and the online world. How do you handle it, and how's it going so far?
So, well, I'll be very frank and very honest about it. I am no longer in private practice because I simply could not do the hours. I simply could not work in an environment where the reward and your progress in your career was measured by the amount of hours you gave the law firm. I couldn't do it because there was zero incentive on my employer's part to be flexible towards me, because my success was measured in the amount of hours I worked, and that couldn't, to me, that couldn't gel with being a mom. I had one of the senior male partners tell me, of course you can have it all. Of course you can be a mom and a partner at a law firm. I'm like, tell me how. Explain to me.
You need a wife for
Do
that.
they have kids?
You need a wife to be able to do that.
Told him. He's like, no, just take a year or two off. And I'm like, so I'm the breadwinner. How am I taking a year or two off? Just realistically speaking. He's like, if I start with my male counterpart at a law firm where you get paid according to your PQE, your post-qualification experience, and I take a year off to go postpartuming and momming, and I come back to the workforce, my male counterpart has 2 years PQE. I'm still stuck at 1. He gets a pay rise. I don't. How does that equal? It just doesn't work. So I realized, after having Gideon and after moving back to South Africa after 8 years in the Middle East, I can't be in private practice anymore. I want to be a mom more than that. And it was a big decision for me to make. It's one that I struggled with, and it's one that I went back and forth on quite a lot, because it was lots of money into my studies, lots of time into my studies, lots of sacrifice. So for me to go, no, that career path, I'm packing that up and I'm going elsewhere, was a big thing for me. Like I said, my identity was my career. So then I shifted. So it to be honest, I couldn't make it work. I couldn't. It was too much. So I shifted into a job where they actually allow me to come in earlier, to leave earlier, so that I can pick the kids up from school and be home. If you phone me between 5 and 7, I'm not picking up my phone. I'm not looking at my phone. It's dinner, bath, and bedtime, and I will not respond to any messages. If anyone phones me, I will not answer. My phone goes and lies on charge and goes away, and I will not pick that up until both kids are in bed.
And I think it's wonderful that you could make that decision, and do it. It's okay. It's okay to change. It's okay to
not feel like a failure.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's really a very mature adult decision to make, and to segue into a different season. And it might not be the season for the rest of your life. It might change again, and that's you. It's a season.
Awesome. Okay, so before we I wanted to say, I keep forgetting things. I'm making notes that I end up drawing flowers. over my notes. I've got like a busy brain tonight. No, I was thinking about the boundaries, and the other day I got a WhatsApp response. I didn't even know you can do that on WhatsApp. I don't know if it's WhatsApp business or whatever, but it was a mom, and she's also I think an influencer, and she's also she's got a pink foot thread. But anyway, it was like 2 p.m. and I texted her, and the response was, "Hi, in the afternoons I spend time with my kids. We'll get back to you in the morning." And I was
Perfect.
like,
Beautiful.
bravo. And it wasn't the email, it was WhatsApp. Because I think, and that's also a thing, is business has changed, and
A
WhatsApp
lot.
is now a tool that's used for work, but it's so in our personal space. It's the same tool you use to text your mom. It's the same tool you use to text your friends and your husband, but now your HR and your colleagues and your clients are all in between. So I also think in to be cognizant about not just the physical boundary or the rule, but also social support. If you have to put a boundary on your WhatsApp, that's what you need to do. Or maybe in your case, Carla, I don't know if you got social media timers or whatever. Because doom scrolling. Now with motherhood, we post a lot, and I'm curious to see what's happening, who's sharing, wara. But then I realized this poor little
It
Baba
sucks into it
breastfeeding
very
is
quickly.
looking at me, and I am looking elsewhere, and I'm not being present. Okay, but so before we go into the next segment, I'm going to give some opportunity from the listeners, or what do we call you, the audience. If you have a question or if you have a comment, you can raise your hand, and then I will unmute you. Is there any hands? Any questions, any comments, anything, something sparked? Are you guys still there? Okay.
Julle moenie nou skaam trek nie. Julle moet vra. Ek weet julle wil vra. Vra.
I don't see anyone raising a hand. There's a
We're
heart.
here.
We are here.
Carla Basson said, we are here.
Nee, ek weet die Siri maak nou nonsens hier, so ek het niks gesê nie.
That's another Carla. Okay, so there's just hearts. Okay, so they are still here, but we then can move on to the next bit. Okay, so let's talk about maybe boundaries that have been successful. Let's make it practical. What boundaries have actually worked for you in the home or workplace, even if they were simple or small? Oh, it doesn't even just have to be boundaries. What type of things have you put in place to help you find the balance?
Someone once told me, Marley, that when they become overwhelmed, they feel like, what is the thing you sift pasta through? What do you call that?
Fajitas.
What is that in English? I have no idea what that is in English.
A pasta strainer.
Strainer. Colander. A colander.
There we
Colander,
go.
I think that's
He
the word.
used the explanation, it was actually a man, to say that when he feels like he's being pulled in different directions, he gets spaghetti head. So when I feel like I get spaghetti head some days, I've realized that it helps so much if you just take a step back, instead of getting in and just like getting busy and trying to push out work, to step away from all of that and to kind of just plan and structure. Someone said earlier, to prioritize the tasks. That's been a game changer for me specifically, to realize not everything is urgent, even though everything feels like it's important, and everyone from multiple points, family, work, children, everything seems like they demand your attention right now. The ability to step back and to prioritize. And I think, Carla, that's back to your glass ball example from earlier. That's really been a game changer for me. So to block out my time and to prioritize my focus, that's shifted a lot. And I think the other, just a little last bit from me, I'm very, very serious. And although I don't stick to it, I really try to protect our family time after working hours up into bedtime. That, let's say from 5 to 8 p.m. for me is like sacred family time, where our night routine helps us reconnect, ideally screen free, engaged, offline, as a family, to sit on the carpet and play and chat and hug. That reconnects me after a very fragmented day. So those two are practical things that we've done that for me gives me a level of sanity and, okay, I'm still here, I'm still engaged, I am giving them the affection and the love and the attention that they need. And I think every person needs to find what works for them and for their family. But those are two things that shifted it for me.
Awesome. Thank you.
For me, really personally, like planning and creating as many, and I mean, sometimes I think people can think I'm like the most boring person alive because I'm like, there's certain things that just kind of happen in my day all the time, like consistently there's certain things. But I always say to people, for me, that being a mom and working and being a person is about 1 billion choices that you make in one day. That's why we get decision fatigue, because we are having to make so many, and it's not just choices I wish it was just my own choices, but lots of the choices is also about our children that we have to make constantly. And then we get decision fatigue. So in the mornings, I don't think about brushing my teeth. I don't think about washing my hair or showering, because these things have become
twice a week.
But again, it's not things I generally think about because they just happen in the end of the day, because it's a habit. And it's the same with our children. We have bedtime routines and these rituals and things like that we do because it's become a habit. So I try to create habits out of lots of things and planning for the week's dinner and those type of things, so that it becomes almost like autopilot. I don't have to, in the beginning of the week, for instance, I think about what are we going to eat. I write it down because there is nothing. I love cooking and I love making food, but deciding what to eat, I hate with a passion. But then in the beginning of the week, usually on a Sunday, I think of what are we going to eat for the entire week, and I write it down so that everyone can go see. I'm in the lucky position that all my children can read already. And then I make the list and everything for the week that needs to go shopping. And that's the only thinking I ever do for the rest of the week when it comes to food. So there's certain things that become like a habit, and there's lots of things like that. Exercise, and I would encourage any person to prioritize exercise, not just because you feel good and you look good, but in the same breath is you've got a lot more energy to take things on. And I also try to overlap things. So if I have to take my kids, for instance, so with exercise, I can't always exercise on my own. So I either go run with my son, so I have connected. I every day walk with my husband together. We walk with the dog. So I have time with my husband and I'm doing something and I'm walking the dogs. When I have to go to my daughter's swimming, you do not have to watch your child swim twice a week. Every time it looks exactly the same. You can miss one and go walk around the block. It is okay.
I'm gonna do that next week. Thank you, Jolandi.
But it is like, and I mean, so I try to see, sometimes I schedule calls as well when my child is sitting next to like if I'm sitting next to a sports field or something like that. Like I said, lots of times I do try to be there and I watch, but I don't have to watch
all of them.
Basketball 50,000 times. So I make like time, then I phone certain people or I text certain people. So I do things that I can do offline or online easily. So I try to overlap things a little bit. And you have to remember, present in the moment is really great. It is fantastic and you want to be present, but any feeling, happiness, sadness, only comes in retrospect where you really feel that feeling. It's very seldom that you have a feeling, oh, this is the most wonderful thing that I've ever done. It's only afterwards where you think, oh, that was actually quite nice. I really enjoyed that. It was a really wonderful day. So take time to reflect about your day and think about, oh, that was not such a bad moment. Oh, it was not such a bad panel talk. They actually knew what they were talking about. Take time to reflect.
So that's my journal.
Tips.
At the end of the day, like you said, we don't realize the gifts and the gems during the day, and then you feel like, overwhelmed. But as soon as you start journaling what went well today, you're going to be like, oh, that's actually quite a good day. The kids are fed, they bathed, they went to school, I got some work done, even if it wasn't all the work. And you're like, oh, okay, not that bad. So it's actually, I love that. I love reflection. Good. Yeah, I've got this. I see there's Carla, before I go over to you, there's a question. Someone asked, my husband and I both work in the hospitality industry, which means we have to work opposite shifts. It's been really difficult for me personally to prioritize my marriage because life is busy with a 1-year-old. Any tips on how to balance life? And I think, that's a important question, because sometimes with work, if you're working and you've got kids, it can often happen that the husband, in terms of your priorities, move to a point, because first the kids, because they can't deal with themselves. And if you don't make it a priority, it is going to fade. It is going to be difficult to get to your husband. So I'm not going to answer that one. Who's going to start with that one? How have you?
I'm happy to share.
Yeah, prioritizing marriage.
So my husband, at one stage, he worked for an American company, which meant that he would clock in at 3 p.m. and then work until 11 p.m., which meant that every single night I did dinner, bedtime, and all of that alone.
Sure.
And I would then put the kids to bed. Gideon would go to sleep at 7:30 the latest, and then I'm alone. And then that really sucked, because on Friday nights as well, he would have to work until 11. So we had one day in the weekend, one evening, where we could just spend time together. And the reality of it was, it really sucked. And we tried to keep it together for as long as we possibly can, but in the end, he looked very, very hard to find another job, because we couldn't sustain it. And what we ended up doing is we ended up going to counseling, because that was the 1 hour where we could actually focus, talk about difficult things, even though we had to pay for it. But it was an hour once a week where we knew difficult things were going to be talked about. And that, I think, was kind of our saving grace. I'm not saying it can't work at all, but a sustained period of completely living past each other. Some things unfortunately got to give. And for us, it was literally just, even the prospect of my husband just deciding, okay, I'm going to find something else so that we can sync up our schedules a bit more. Even just the prospect of that was already we could breathe again about it. But that hour a week, that hour held us over. So,
And there's nothing wrong with going for counseling. Sorry, Mandi. I mean, yes, get help if you need help. I agree.
The
and
thing is,
there's a thing.
Certain... Marley?
No, sorry. There's a thing they say: if things don't change, it will stay the same. Which is obvious.
Yeah.
But if things don't change, it will stay the same. It is, like you said, Carla. Sometimes it is the thing that needs to change is maybe the job. And I've got another friend that also, her husband, same as you, her husband works also in hospitality, and she's doing this thing with the 2 kids, bathing them, all of that on her own every day, and only see him almost on weekends and only for a day. But I think she knows this is just a season, and then they're going to go, because there's hope he is applying for a senior role, or he's going to move into another hotel or whatever. And if that's the case, then you're committing to the season. But I think when it gets difficult is when you don't know if this is ever going to
be light. Yeah.
If there's no hope of a change, then something must change.
That's what I wanted to raise, is that certain people are in a situation where it can't change, because that is a requirement. You have to balance provision with being present as a mom or a dad. I think it's something that people also don't want to admit openly or talk about, but the strain that being a parent puts on marital relations, the husband's feeling neglected, or as a mom, I feel like I'm often last in line. And then when I really think about it, I realize my husband is actually last in line, and he's the head of the house, and actually he doesn't get prioritized as much as he needs to. So I think it's also a very normal part of this journey that we are all on. And when you can't change to a different job or a different space, I think, Marley, you hit the nail on the head to say it is a season where your kids are in certain ages. But if we can try to build in moments of intentional connection throughout the day, it really anchors our relationships and just makes us feel valued or seen or heard. So even if it's just 10 minutes before you get up in the morning, don't open your phone, look at each other and just have coffee together for those 10 or 15 minutes. And
Look
that's
for
your
the
connection
quality
for the
time.
day. Or when you eventually have a little bit of time together, then deliberately and intentionally spend it together and see how you can go and walk the dogs together if that's possible. And that's your moment of quality connection while you are still ticking things off the list.
We
Like,
also,
if you're away from each other as well, practically, and I mean, it is, I agree with you guys as well. And I mean, sometimes when your children are small, you only see the trees, you don't see the woods. You don't see the bigger picture of everything because you're in it and it's really hectic. But it is really a season. Also with small children, it requires a lot more of your attention. I mean, not that big. Parenting really starts only when they're older. No, you're just keeping them alive. And it's no offense. It's really just, it's a very different kind of requirement that is happening. But it also, that does change with regards to your husband. And when your kids are small, I think that's when it's the biggest strain that your marriage takes at the beginning, because it's also an
same
adjustment and
thing. Oh,
finding your role as a mom, finding your role as yourself still, and then as your partner, and now also your partner seeing you as a mom, as you, and
Lots
as
of
their
things
partner. So
shift.
it's like a lot of mind shift that is happening, and it's a seasonal thing, definitely. But at the same time as well, if you're there's ways to find ways to connect in silly ways. WhatsApp each other, special messages. Be careful with pictures, but WhatsApp each other, and just make the time of consciously saying, "Hey, missed you last night, and good night. I'm going to bed. I love you, and I wish you were here, but we'll find each other again. Kiss each other, touch each other, find each other, do something small for each other. It doesn't have to be lots of things, but quality things can happen, and it will change. But you also need to make sure that you consciously think about it changing eventually.
a change, it's also, we often recalibrate, like we'll say, okay, this is the plan. I do the I put Estienne to bed, you put him to bed, then we do this, blah, 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 and on Wednesdays it's date night. And then for a while that worked. And then Marcus starts with homework. Now it's shifting. Now we can't continue with the routine that we committed to a year ago. So then sometimes we will have a date night and we'll take pens and we'll take a poster and we'll open a bottle of wine and we'll say, okay, what's the plan? Okay, this is the plan. We're going to run together. We're going to get a babysitter once a week, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. That's the plan for now. But that plan changes constantly because our kids change and the need change. And so I think if you, maybe you committed to a plan when you were pregnant, but now your baby's one. So the need have changed. So we have to recalibrate and make new plans. And I like what you said of the moments of intentional connection and that being present is create little moments where you can connect, either if it's the morning coffee or the lunch or whatever, but when you're present, be present. And then also another thing I wanted to say was when you get children, it's good to communicate roles. So for example, for a very long time, I have now been a stay-at-home mom with the kids. And so my role was, we don't have household here where we live, cleaning the house and doing the laundry and all that. And then we started this motherhood thing that really is full-time work to build the app and all that. So I'm working now. And so that's just my journey. But Hendrik and I had to sit down and say, listen, I know you are used to me doing all of these things, but now I'm working. Even though I'm not making money, but I am, putting in my time into this thing. So we have to now talk about how you're going to help me with the laundry. And so you're going to wash the lunch boxes at night so that I can pack them in the morning. You are going to fetch the kids on a Wednesday and I'm going to take them to swimming. And I think it's so important if you, especially coming out of maternity leave, it changes, because suddenly you're not just at home anymore, and you're taking, even if it's a half-day job or a temp job, you have to communicate about what's our new roles and our new rules, and how can we help each other carry each other's luster. There's another question. Apart from the guilt at work when leaving early to watch a netball game, or the guilt at home when you miss bedtime due to a project deadline, how do you prioritize yourself? That guilt hits the hardest, and I end up not being anything but a mom and an employee. How and when do you prioritize yourself? Who wants to take that one?
I think self-care has also become like a whole thing. I feel that it also puts so much pressure on moms, to be honest, that we always have to take care of you. You have to put your own mask on before you put your child's mask on, and you have to take care of yourself. And I think we have this idea of what self-care is. And for me, honestly, it's exercise. And it sounds again very silly, and it sounds, but it really it gives me so much energy for everything else. To be honest, I cannot imagine my life without it. And that is my meditative time, my time of being on my own, and my me time, taking care of me time. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be complicated, but again, there's a season for it. I can very cockily now saying, yeah, to you, I'm exercising all the time, but it's also a season. When my kids were small, it was a lot more difficult to find the time, because you have to be a lot more with them. And I'm saying, oh, you don't have to watch your child swimming. I remember when my kids were really small, the swimming school would not allow me to leave. I had to sit there and watch them swim, so I couldn't go anywhere. But it is really just also about quality, and it doesn't have to be an extreme of you have to go for a girls' weekend away or to a spa or something like that. But find the time to be able to, even if it's just at the end of the day, thinking about your day and breathing for 10 minutes before you sleep. It will change as well, and your season will change. But if you don't prioritize that and make space for it in your life, it's not going to happen. But it doesn't have to be complicated. Again, for me, exercise is my number one go-to.
And I mean, everyone can have something. For you it's exercise, for someone else it could be reading a chapter out of your book, or sipping a coffee alone before the household wakes up, or it could be different things, as long as you have your thing that revitalizes you.
What happens in a lot of cases is that we link our worth and our value to our work or career identity, or we link our worth and our value to being a mom or to being a wife. So from a spiritual point of view, you are worthy because of what the Lord has done for you, and your worth lies in that specifically. And throughout the day and throughout the mess, you have the opportunity to do a different form of exercise as well, which is practicing virtue, practicing self-control, practicing showing up with love and care, even if you're imperfect in those moments. So I think we also need to learn how to rephrase things that we have been saying as well. I feel like I'm failing. I feel like
what does success look like? Yeah.
What does success look like? We need to reframe these things to say, I'm not failing. I'm doing the best I can right now. Or I need 10 minutes to step away right now because I'm becoming somebody that I don't like. Give mommy 10 minutes. I'm going to have a cup of tea and then I'll be back. So to realize when it's okay to protect those boundaries as well for your own sense of sanity and salvation, even in some cases.
I read
that's another boundary that you need to set.
I read about a concept, and I'm doing some research on it. I wanted to write a blog post on it for motherhood. It's called revenge bedtime procrastination, and it's a trend that moms feel you're dead tired, it's time to go to bed, but you haven't really had time for yourself yet. And now you stay awake, either watching a story or reading a book or even just walking up and down. You should go to bed, but it's as if like taking revenge on the fact
You
that
just
you
want some
haven't had
me time.
some me time, like at 12 at night or whatever.
Yeah.
And that, yes, it just shows the fact that it's a trend. It shows the need that moms have to have that that moment for yourself. And I think something that helped me with this whole concept was, one, allowing other people to help me. I've always been a very self-sufficient,
Life is not meant
independent.
to be done alone.
I've always been that type of personality. And even with my first child, Carla, you and I spoke a lot about that in our podcast, was allowing other people to help you. If someone offers to watch the kids at the swimming pool so that you can go for a walk, go, take a walk. You know, if someone offers to bring over a lasagna, don't say,
yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Can you bring two? Like, what time can you be here? Where were you yesterday? But allowing other people to help, I would say, is the first thing that kind of freed me, that I don't have to suffer on my own. And then another thing, and I think it was also for me and Jan, is to communicate your needs. Don't assume he's just going to know what you need. He thinks you need roses. No, I don't need roses. I need 5 minutes of silence. Take the kids out for 5. That's what I need. That's all I need. But anyways, just communicate your needs and find ways to fill that need. And it is crazy with little ones. It's very difficult. You don't even get to finish sentences. But I do think is communicating your needs. You'll be surprised how well other people can support you if you just communicate what you actually need. Okay.
And if you are willing to accept the help. Yes. That took me a minute.
Yeah,
because we want to, because we think we can do it better. Probably we could, but...
And also on the self-care, it made me think about it, Carla, when in the beginning, when you talked about the percentages, I think it was Brené Brown had this conversation, this video I watched one day where she said she and her husband has this thing where she will tell him what her capacity is at. And so she would say, husband, I am on 30%. And then he would say, okay, I know that I need to up my game. I need to be 70% for us to be 100. Or he would say, I'm at 50. And she said, okay, I'm also at 50. Great. But sometimes they get to a point and she's like, listen, I'm on 20%. And he says, I'm also on 20%. That means as a parent, as a whole, you're 40%. That can't be. You need to, for your children, for your house, something needs to change. So when they are both at 40%, they're like, okay, let's step back. Let's see what do we need to. We need to call my mom. Do we need to get something in place? And I think that is a wonderful way to make sure the balance is always right. Like your husband, if you're at 40%, he must know that so that he can be the 60% today. But on a day that he's 20%, you need to up your game to 80%. And find that balance in communication to ensure you don't both burn out. Okay, then lastly, I think we need to wrap it up. We're at an hour already. It's been such a blast. If you could whisper one sentence of encouragement to the moms listening, trying to hold all the pieces, what would you say? You want to think about it? Whoever's got the first encouragement ready, you can go.
I think for me, what I would have done, what I would have valued before becoming a mom for the first time is hearing that every struggle that you're going to face, it's just going to be a small chapter, and it will definitely pass. You're thinking you're struggling now with colic and wins. That passes in a very short period of time in the bigger scheme of things. And when you're in the thick of it, I know it's so hard, but it goes by in the blink of an eye. Like at the minute, I'm with my second time around, obviously. Oliver's now 14 months. Very grateful sleeping through the night from 12 weeks because once again did a course, had to, atypical personality, working long hours. I needed to know that there's going to be a set routine my child's going to sleep. But now when he wakes up in the night and he wants some attention, I'm where if it would have been Gideon, I would have lost my mind. I'm like, I'm failing. This is not working. This is horrible. This child needs to sleep. He mustn't be awake now. Blah, blah. But now I'm like, it goes by so fast. I can't even remember when Gideon was this age. And then it can be 3 o'clock in the morning and I'll just sit with Oliver and I'll just sit in it. And I don't care that I'm awake right now, because I know 6 months down the line, this is not going to be an issue anymore. So, but he won't be this small and he won't fit in my arm anymore. And that's horrible. So everything is just a very fleeting chapter. And with the bad comes the good, and the bad will definitely fade.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thanks for that. Mandi?
What just came to me as I shared with my husband earlier, that one day we might wake up in a perfectly clean house that's quiet, it's calm, I'm well rested, and it might just be the saddest day of my life when that happens. So learning to kind of just embrace where you're at and not putting the pressure on yourself to be perfect at every single moment in every single day. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not cope. It's okay to feel like a mess. But as long as you are pouring out love and care to everybody around you and yourself, you're doing well.
Awesome. Thank you, Mandi. Jolandi?
It's actually a little bit weird and eerie, because I obviously knew kind of what we were going to talk about. So I did write down something beforehand, and it's funny because I wrote down, no, this is a long game. Motherhood is a long game. And it is exactly what Carla said, is in the end of the day, and in essence, what Mandi also said, is that these phases really is, and it's funny how as moms, like when we think like, oh, I'm choosing breastfeeding now. And then, and we think like I'm going to put my kid in their own room, or all these choices that we make. We often think that that's now the choice. We cannot go back on it ever. And that's the thing, is that you have to remember that it's a long game, and one choice, one tantrum, one wrong reaction does not define your entire journey. Don't give it even remotely that much power. There is going to be a lot of things that you think are choices that is not even a choice. You're going to be forced into it, and you're going to have to do it that way, and there's no other way to do it. And some things are going to be choices, and you're going to look back and think, oh, I thought that was such a stupid choice, and look what a great choice it was. And it's going to be the opposite, where you thought, oh, this is the right choice, and you're going to look back and be like, oh, that was a stupid choice. And that's going to happen. But it's so many choices, so many actions, so many things. As long as there's love, and as long as there's kindness, and the example of kindness and love, your kids are going to be absolutely fine. And don't define your motherhood journey by one wrong thing. Stupid.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think also the encouragement I wanted to give was, it links to that, but is be careful for pride. Growth comes from vulnerability. When you are open to learn, when you are open to grow, when you are open to fail. And if you fail, just fail fast, move on. It's fine. It's that vulnerability to say, I'm willing to ask for help. The vulnerability to say, I'm not the mom that I imagined I was going to be, the picture perfect influencer, white linen mom. It's fine, and you don't have to be. And for me, that has been my biggest freedom, was being vulnerable and in my motherhood journey, to say, yes, I do need help. Yes, please buy me bread. Yes, please watch the kids so we can, go for a walk or whatever. Ladies, it has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your journeys and sharing your knowledge and sharing your wisdom. To the listeners, if you're curious, if you enjoyed this, we're already having weekly events with different experts, panel discussions, Q&As. You've got access to all of it. So do go check out motherhoodmoms.com. There's also a podcast that's free. There's blog posts, and it really is a space where we can do exactly this: is get together, connect, and embrace motherhood. So thank you. Is there any questions before we sign off, or any last words?
Thank you, Marley, and your
Oh, dankie,
team for
Marley.
setting up and having us,
Dankie,
and for all the moms who's taken the time to do this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, ladies.
Dankie
Have a wonderful
julle.
evening. See you.
Dankie,
Well,
Marley.
Bye.
Bye.
Toodaloo.